We're not dogs,
Mhm,
all right? We're humans,
mhm.
and we can train ourselves to make the best possible use of this gap rather than just reacting. We're not supposed to stay in a situation that is abusive or where we are close to burnout all the time or toxic in any way. No, it's really important to listen to our negative emotions because they carry important messages.
Welcome to Life is the Game, hosted by yours truly, Alexandra Nicole Stone. Get ready to uncover the secrets to mastering your destiny, becoming the main character in your life, and embracing a life filled with meaning and joy. Ready? Let's play. Hello and welcome to Life is the Game. Today I'm super excited to have Milena Dalinaros on. She is a charisma coach, writer, and blogger. She holds a degree in psychology, rhetoric, and agile project management. She is currently writing a book about charisma featuring niche experts. Milena has led 20 plus intensive long form courses in the military on interviewing, interrogation, effective communication, and interpersonal relationships. While working in the armed forces, she's coached 200 plus military professionals in people skills, including body language, conversation skills, and power dynamics. Now, she is distilling the main takeaways to include in her coaching program for individuals titled Place of Power, as well as creating motivational speeches, lectures, and workshops for teams, businesses, and organizations. Thank you so much for joining me, Milena. What I really love about the work you do and the charisma perspective, right, is it really overlaps really nicely with kind of the idea of like you being the main character in your life and kind of projecting on the avatar version, the ideal version of who you want to be. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. I think it's going to get really interesting and really deep.
Yes, so am I. I've been looking forward to this a lot.
So, was there ever a game that kind of influenced your mindset or kind of positively impacted you growing up?
So I love to play games. I love to play different characters. I love to imagine myself in different situations and see who I will become as I try on these different masks or roles. But what has mostly had a great impact on me and my personal development and growth has been improvisation theater. And that came into
Mm.
my life a bit later. It wasn't while I was growing up, but actually when I was a young adult. And that has had a great impact on how I dare to step out of my own comfort zone and grow it, how I try on different characteristics, traits, and try different behaviors in different situations.
And for those of the audience who are not familiar with improv, can you kind of give them a little bit of a taster of what that's like?
Yes, absolutely. Into a mindset of yes, saying yes to what is occurring and spinning on whatever comes up. So instead of being faced with with a situation and wanting to reject it, you're like, okay, I'll accept that we are now on another planet surrounded by aliens. Fine, I will roll with it and see what I come up with and add to this situation. Or it might be a completely different game or scenario that comes up, and whatever comes up is okay. You just say yes and add your contribution to the story that unfolds. And of course, this is going to bring surprises. It is going to, whatever you have planned in your mind, like, oh, after that person is done with their part, I'm going to do this, this, and this. No, you're probably not going to be able to keep that idea alive for long enough because everything evolves so quickly, at least if everyone is in this yes mindset. So when it is your turn, when by then you might be still having that idea in your mind, but you will need to think on your feet and come up with something that is actually going to be in the yes mindset.
There's two really beautiful things that you learn from improv. Number one, it's surrender, right? If you cannot surrender to the experience, you kind of have a hard time going with it because you have that idea, right? The answer that you want to say. But if you can't surrender to the experience, is when you start freezing up. And kind of the same thing happens in life, right? When you can't surrender to what's happening in your life a little bit, you start freezing up, maybe you get anxious. And then the second thing is like it's kind of making you much more playful than you would be in your actual life, right? You have to embody the spirit of play to be that spontaneous. You have to kind of be like your inner child. "Well, why not this?" Right? There's not that negative voice in your head saying, "No, it can't be this." Okay, if we're on a purple planet that the clouds are made of rainbows, what's next? So it kind
Exactly.
of changes your mindset to be a little bit more excited and move forward with the plot.
Totally. I love that.
Why don't you share with the audience, how did you get to where you are today doing this charisma training? I know you've had a couple of crazy side quests in your life on this journey that you've been on. So, can you kind of give us a backstory? How did you get started, or how did you end up here?
Absolutely. Yes, I had this idea in mind when I was younger that I wanted to do basic military training, just like a bucket list item. I wanted to have this check in the box that, okay, I have done that. I have learned to shoot. I have learned to sleep outdoors in the woods. I have done all of those things. I don't know really why I was so drawn to that, but I was. So I applied, but this 3 month commitment, as I saw it, as I was actually prepared to do at that time, turned out to become almost a decade within the military. And it led me through a lot of different things, like being in the headquarters, becoming a military interpreter. And at the end of my military career, I was teaching human dynamics to other professional military personnel. And you actually did an amazing introduction there. So that was what I was doing. I was teaching them communication skills, people skills, body language, conversation techniques, all of these things. Well, I never thought that I would make that side quest into my career. I really did think in the beginning that it would be just a training and that's that. But that's what happens in life, I guess. If you have an idea, you go for it. It might turn into something that you didn't plan, and you need to be able to surrender to that experience. If it's something that feels right and aligned with you, then go for it. But it is important also to say that if it doesn't feel aligned with you and you are just feeling that you're kind of being drawn into something that was not your plan and not really what you want, then you need to know that you must take charge in those scenarios. That no, you're not just supposed to go with the flow then. Right then, you're supposed to say stop and, turn back, take a different direction. But for me, it did feel aligned. And it was a really great experience. I met a lot of amazing people and learned a lot about myself, which has served me extremely well in life.
When first of all, you're pretty much a rock star for being like, "I just wanna casually go to the military for 3 months and test it out," and when you were telling your friends and your family that you had this desire and that you were gonna go and do this, what was their reaction?
Well, my mom said it was a really good idea. She thought that it's good for young women to be strong and have those kinds of experiences in their little backpack of life experience. My sister also did the same military training, but she only stuck with the basic military training and some officers training. She didn't make a
Mhm,
career out of it for 10 years as I
mhm.
did. But still, we are a family that admire people who choose to really challenge themselves and go for adventures. That can look very different for different people. It can be the military as for us, or it can be something completely different, like traveling the world or starting your own business, really trying to do this academic career on high levels, like a professor or something. It's different for everybody, but I admire people who do take those chances and challenge themselves.
And when you were going through this experience, did you have, like, a playful sort of mentality going into it? And during your military training, what sort of triggered maybe a higher interest during that time?
Yeah, so I was drawn to the challenge of studying to become a military interpreter because that was
Mhm.
considered as one of the hardest military professions to be able to succeed within. So I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I did it. And I really enjoyed it, but it was also extremely challenging and it required sacrifices, of course. I don't know how I would do the whole thing if I lived that whole period of my life again, but it was valuable. And I think that what kept me going was that I, in fact, did have a play mentality. How I approached learning a new language was very playful. How I studied, how I divided my time for different things that I needed to get done to be able to succeed with the different exams and so on. Everything was very playful, I wanted to make it fun because if I hadn't made it fun for myself, I would probably not have made it all the way.
At this time, did you have a vision of kind of where you wanted your life to go? And then you took this interpretation course. How did your vision of like who you wanted to be start shaping?
Yeah. I guess that I was pretty young back then. And I think I was in a bit of go with the flow state of mind. So I
Mhm.
was swept by the current and just going in the direction that it took me. But what I did
Mhm.
really fall in love with was when we, as the interpreters, had our human dynamics course when we were students, because it reminded me of when I was studying psychology at university and rhetoric at university. And I thought, oh, this is like me going back to my roots. I really enjoy these topics. I really enjoy how they are teaching us these things in practice. And I really want to be a teacher within this. But to me, that was like a distant dream. I never thought that I
Mhm.
would actually become a teacher there. It was just something that I thought, like, wow, wouldn't that be amazing? And then after a while, that was exactly what I applied for. And I got in to be able to do that. It was my dream job. And I had so much fun, such amazing colleagues and amazing students. So I'm really happy that at that moment, it was actually me making this wish. And when I was ready for it and I saw the opportunity and I felt like, okay, now the time has come for me to take this opportunity, I actually did it and succeeded with that.
I love that you said that. I want to pause and sort of reflect on this thing where I think a lot of us in our youth, in our or early 20s, or as we're going through this experimentation phase in our lives, we just kind of go with the flow. Because in the beginning, it really is about, I have to do something, right? I have to move forward in the story. So you're just trying things. But that moment that you highlighted where you do get swept up is sort of like realizing that, oh, okay, is this even what I really want? And stopping to ask yourself, I'm just been doing things the way I've been doing them because opportunities keep presenting themselves to me. But is that even what I really want? So I think it's really great that you had that sort of reflection, like, oh, this is interesting to me. And so I'm going to take action on this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What would you say sort of your, like, aha moment? What was the turning point in your life where you feel like the sort of direction of your life changed a little bit and you started sort of taking on new experiences?
One big pivotal moment for me was when I very consciously and intentionally decided for myself that I am going to make sure that I get my book published, my book about charisma, and I am going to have my own business that offers coaching. And I want to teach this. I want to teach this my way and through the methodologies that I believe in and with the dream clients that I have in mind. And be this charisma coach that I had in mind, that I could envision this powerful woman giving inspirational speeches on stages with thousands of people, and also being able to facilitate more, familiar workshops for smaller teams, taking people on executive retreats with this topic as something that holds the whole thing together. So I was seeing myself more and more in these different situations. And finally, I made this decision like, okay, I'm going to be the charisma coach that I envision. I'm not even sure I can call it an aha moment. It was more like that moment when I actually made this decision. And
Mm.
it felt like the most effortless. suffering in the world. Like, of course, this is me. Of course, this is what I'm supposed to do here. This is what I'm placed on this planet to do, because this is how I'm going to help people. This is what I have learned about myself and about others, and I have already helped lots of people with. But now I can
Mhm.
do it in an even more profound way. And there's no question about this. Of course, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it felt like I had
Mm.
known this for many, many years. Like this whole journey through the military, before that, studying psychology and rhetoric, all of it just fell into place when I made up my mind that, yes, this is my decision. And once I did make that decision so final, at the same time as it was completely effortless and natural for me, it was also completely life changing. It was like overnight,
Mm.
I became this completely new, more powerful person. Just like overnight
Mhm.
change and transformation, as if something that had been just slightly close to me, outside of me, integrated, just like that. And maybe it had
Mm.
already been integrated for a while, but that was when I felt it, so that I could start implementing in the way that I saw it. I started to see what I'm supposed to do, not just on an idea phase, or it was like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know
Mm.
exactly. It's like a download of information or
Mm.
instructions about how I'm supposed to do this whole thing. And I'm just following orders.
I'm resonating so deeply with what you're saying because I feel number one, like I've gone through or I'm going through something very similar in my life where you kind of go on all these journeys and like sometimes the journey is not really linear, but all of these things are attributing to your character. And you have this vision of yourself that maybe when you're younger, it's a little bit foggy, but it's getting refined over time. And now that you've affiliated yourself more with this line of work, right, and you really connected to the charisma work and teaching people that, right? Like that blurriness around that vision of yourself starts, becoming clearer. So you realize like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the vision of me. That's the clarity." And I love so much that you said it wasn't an aha moment so much as like, "Oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I've been searching for. This is that feeling that I've been searching for where it's like where everything in my body is saying 100% yes, this is it and I want to pursue that." That is such a valuable feeling. Okay, you knew sort of the direction you wanted to go to. Maybe it's like from teaching to speaking. At some point there was an evolution there, but like how did you visualize yourself and where did you get to that point of clarity where you understood that, yes, this is the feeling, this is the right feeling?
Yes. So I actually have some foggy memories of having had these visions of myself in these situations that I described a long
Mhm.
time ago. It was even before I started working as a teacher in the military within these topics. Sometime I think I even got one when I was at a rhetoric lesson, and we got this amazing lecture from a rhetoric professor. And I was like, I want to do that too. But at that time, I didn't really believe that I could do that. So I just pushed those
Mhm.
visions aside. But,
Mhm.
having gotten so much proof now that I can do it, because I have studied this myself so much, I have taught so many people, coached so many people into amazing results. I just, now I know that I can do it. And I feel that now the vision, when I see it, it feels more believable. It's not just like I'm trying to convince myself through affirmations
Mhm.
like, I am confident. No, I actually
Yeah.
know that I feel this. And it's just a matter of taking necessary steps in the physical world to make this all come true and become reality. But at the same time, it also feels like what I'm envisioning now has already happened, and I'm already envisioning a vision after that vision. Like I am
Mhm.
already operating from the envisioned me, who is already a successful coach, public speaker, and all of these things that I mentioned, she has already accomplished that. So now when I'm planning, when I'm dreaming and envisioning things, I am already in that person. So
Mm.
it feels a bit like when I am looking at my reality, like, oh, I'm still writing the book. Wait, don't I already have 3 published books? What happened?
Yes.
Because I'm operating a lot from I am already a, you know, best-selling author with 3 books published and all of those things. I've already talked to Oprah, by the way. You know, and so it's a bit like, oh, wow, okay, yes, I am a bit confused now. What is reality? And I think this
Mm.
ties in really well with your topic of life is the game, because when you start playing in a way that you actually really believe this person that you envision, which is actually a part of you. I mean, it's not like you're faking anything. If it feels real, it is a part of you. It is one of your
Yeah.
potential future selves, which is
Yes.
in great connection with you in the present. And that's amazing because that is part of having this effortless downloading of guidance. You need to be in connection with this version of yourself because
Yes.
that's when you
Yes.
get into this. So I love that
Yes.
your topic is life's the game because I totally believe it because I'm experiencing it. It's what I'm living right now.
I love that you say that because I really like refer to that version of ourselves that we see like that's the avatar, right? Like that's our ideal version of ourselves that we need to become to play the game the way that we want to, right? And right now, like we're still the main character in that narrative, right? And that avatar and us, like we're the same person. So that person is in us already. It's just that our environment or maybe our character, our attributes, our personality are maybe not 100% activated or aligned with that future version of ourselves. Now that I'm operating sort of in this place where I'm writing and I'm coaching, that version of it's like almost like you've become it, right? Because your environment is reflecting that. So now you've already moved into like, what's the next avatar that I need to become? What's that next version of me that I need to become? But in the beginning, I think for a lot of people, that version of you feels so unattainable because maybe there's like lack of clarity around who that person is. But I think that's when the exploration of it and taking actioning some of the attributes that that person has. Okay, my avatar is a writer, is a speaker. Okay, how do we get started? Maybe I need to do a podcast or interview people or start having more chats. Maybe I just need to write, 3 pages a day or however much you need to do. But over time, like, that is sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and all of a sudden, the evidence in your life starts supporting that you are that person. People start reaching out to you, "Oh my gosh, I wanna be on your podcast." People start reaching out to you like, "Oh, tell me more about charisma," right? Like, or, "Can I write a guest post on your blog?" And so then your mind, it's like a psychological thing starts happening. You start believing, "Wait, I'm this person. I'm becoming this person." It's not I don't feel imposter syndrome anymore. Maybe I'm on the junior level, right, of who the potential of who that person can become. I am that person. It's really great that you highlighted that, and I think that's really the point of life is a game, that all these visions and all this life that we want, this version of ourselves that we have in our head, it's already there. You are that person, right? You just need to build towards it.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's dive a little bit into charisma because I think there's so many lessons in charisma that the audience can learn from. And I really want you to talk about, what did you call it? Emotional dynamics or
Social dynamic.
the social dynamics,
But
right? So I
emotional is
know,
also a very important part of it, of course.
yeah, like in our notes or in our conversations today, you were talking about what is the actual process of exploring your character and your avatar, or, in your own words, is sort of this persona of who you want to become.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing that you are tying the avatar to a potential future self because that's also the way I see it. And I would like to challenge this a little bit for the audience now. Like, future self, who is that? When is that? In how many
Mhm.
years is that? Or in how many decades? And now I was recently at a book release party of a book that is about longevity, medications that support longevity and against aging, basically. And I asked the author, I was like, well, how old do you think you will get to be? And he's like, 1,000 years. Very confidently.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, wow. If you start thinking about it, it means that maybe our future selves, one of the potential future selves we have, will be 1,000 years old. And if I start to think like, okay, maybe I should not limit myself to thinking about who will I be in like 10 years, 2 years, and so on, as I
Mhm.
have done previously, but who will I be in 900 years? And what could I have, like, if I was able to meet this version of myself, what kind of conversations would we be able to have? What would I ask her? What would she tell me? What would she tell me to change now so that she can become as, charismatic, powerful, loving, compassionate, empathetic as possible? What could I do right now to create the most wonderful version of myself at that age? And I
Mhm.
think it's a really fun thing to play with those kinds of thoughts, if that actually is possible. And there are people who really believe that we will live very long lives, then by all means, why not explore that as a mental tool in the concept of future self as well? It makes the concept of who we can be as our future self, our highest self, so much more elevated than we have ever been able to imagine before. And what wouldn't that do for our present right now? What wouldn't we be able to learn from that? It's limitless. So I'm very, very stoked for exploring that more.
This really ties into kind of those 2 key components from the improvisation game, right? You have to sort of surrender a little bit to this experience, right? Of like, "Oh, I'm talking to my future self," and you have to have fun with it. I like to say, kind of when you're thinking about all this work, this frameworks, right? That you look at yourself, this lens in which you look at yourself and which you look through your life through. It's good to be a little bit delusional, enthusiastic, playful, however you wanna be, because if you start thinking about it too literally, then the box starts to get framed and the ideas start to get stagnant. But it's really just like have fun because you deserve to be able to explore those versions yourselves. And I think even kind of making it a caricature, like be a little bit hyperbolic about the person that you want to become, just so you can see like what is the full potential and have a clear visualization of what that persona is kind of and like, be able to turn it on. Okay, this person is very bold and courageous. Maybe they dress in a certain fashion, right? They don't care about norms, right? So when you are thinking of that person that you are in the future, they just don't care about any, they don't have any limiting beliefs applied to them. In 1,000 years, you wouldn't have any limiting beliefs.
Probably
You'd be
not.
like, I just do what I want, right? I think after 1,000 years, that's kind of like those vampire novels, right? They're like thousands of years old. They don't care about anything, right? At
Totally.
that point, right? Outside of their own interests, like they're just so confident. That's why vampires are so confident, right? They're older than time. But yeah, it's just kind of having that person in your mind, because then when you're trying to embody that character and role play a little bit in your life as that persona, you're able to be like, okay, I can push my boundaries a little bit further. I think you've even talked about kind of like, okay, someone talks to me, or how do I talk, right? Am I mysterious? Am I enigmatic? Do I demand respect with the way I talk? So how does an individual move through space as well? So that's interesting that you say that.
Love that you're bringing up perception, basically. Because,
Yeah.
if we say something like, I suffer from bad luck, or we
Mhm.
could say, I always have good luck. The thing is that both can be true about our past, our present, and our future at the same
Mm.
time, depending on what we choose to put our focus on. If we say, I suffer from bad luck, we will be able to find lots and lots of examples when we had bad luck, bad things happen to us, and having to suffer and deal with problems. And we will keep seeing that in our present, everywhere around us. And we will draw lots of that to us. And I'm not talking about any woo-woo things. I'm talking about how our
Mhm.
perception steers our focus and basically how we experience our reality. And likewise, if we
Mhm.
say, I have so much good luck in my life and so many blessings, and look back in our memory at our past, we will be able to find lots of examples for that. Same with the future and the present. And I think it's important to tell ourselves the story we want to experience and if the evidence is easy to see and find or not. Because the more we say it,
Mhm.
the more we try to seek out evidence for all of the things we want to see. Like, I have good luck, I have supporting friends, I am successful, I am good at learning new things, and whatever we want to have as our characteristics, traits, attributes, and experiences, if we say a lot about that, think about that, we will find more and more evidence that it is present in our life because to some extent it is present in everybody's life. Maybe at first it will be a little, but it will grow the more you put your focus on it because you will seek out opportunities to be more successful, to have more good luck, more blessing. And as you do that, with each choice and choice, we make choices in every moment. It's not something years ago or years ahead in the future. It's literally tomorrow, like the next hour. That is also the future. So we
Mhm.
can choose how our next hour will be, how our next day will be. And through this focus and perception work, we have a lot of power in creating the experience of our time here on earth, our especially our present and our future, because we decide who we will be through our focus. And that is something we should never forget when we are trying to align with the correct future version of ourselves, because they are endless as well. We have a limitless amount of future selves out there, and some are going to be not very flattering, you know? If we choose to be bitter now, who will we be in 1,000 years, you know? Not someone
Mm.
people would want to be around, probably, but if we choose to be someone who tries to be the best they can be, has compassion, empathy, always trying to learn more, grow as a person, and choose the best perspective and perception, then
Mhm.
there are much higher chances that we are going to grow into this ideal future version of ourselves. So, how we choose the future self is how we are today and in each
Mhm.
moment when we make choices.
What I love about what you're saying is that you've really assigned the vocabulary to this framework, to this mentality of kind of playing your life as a game and how do you want to be perceived, right? What is your perception of yourself? And how do you want to be perceived by the external world? And I think there's such an important thing here that is like key is the visualization of your life. And sometimes maybe thinking of who you want to become is a really big question and it gives a lot of people anxiety like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I want to become. I don't know. You don't have the clarity around there. But you said something really important where it was like, what kind of life do you wanna live? Okay, I'm not struggling, right? Like, I live a life that's filled with abundance. I'm really lucky. I get to have a lot of free time. I get to be very creative, right? So, it's really defining the feeling of your life. I think that's more important than even describing the exact vision of who you want to become, because the thing is, when you don't have a clear sense of who exactly that person is that you wanna become, it's like, what attributes do I want my life to have? What are my values? How do I want my life to be? Like, what do I choose to see in my life, right? Because even if I'm unlucky all the time, it's kind of you're putting on this pair of glasses that's only seeing that. But when you're saying, "Oh, I have opportunities everywhere I go," you put on a different pair of glasses, and then that's the mentality shift where everything becomes an opportunity or a chance for you to move forward. And it's just a little shift in your perspective. So I love that you assign the vocabulary to that. And you also said something about choices, which is, I love that you say that so much because I think a lot of people who are like naysayers about like this life is the game thing say, well, life can't be a game because in games, when you die, you can come back to life. But in real life, when you die for real, right? You're dead, dead. And this is very true. But I think there's something else here. It's like, well, every time we have a chance to make a choice, every choice we have is sort of an opportunity to come back to life. It's an opportunity for us to experiment with our character. An opportunity for us to take a risk. It's an opportunity for us to fail again, but learn from that failure and then have that knowledge in the next choice that we make. So when you start shifting your perspective a little bit from this is like, oh, I'm stuck and there's this sense of permanence, it's like, no, no, no. Every time we have a choice, we have the power to shift the direction of our lives. We have the power to embody the person that we want to become. We have the chance and the opportunity to shape our lives in the direction that we want it to go and to emulate the things that we want it to have.
And I can tell you about a time when I was at a satellite communication conference in Luxembourg. It was a really interesting conference, a lot of speakers on stage. But the person I found who was the most charismatic in my eyes was a lady, definitely in her 70s, I would say. And she was just shining, so confident, so friendly, so open and welcoming. Everyone was leaving her with a smile after they had talked to her. And I was like, wow, I want to be like that when I'm that age, this effortless center of the whole party without even being one of the speakers. She was in the audience, but it was, such strong charisma with this woman.
Mm.
It's hard to describe it even, but I have also seen people that age who are not like that, who look a little bit like they have given up almost. And sometimes they glance in an unfriendly way towards strangers or even say unpleasant things. And I'm sure it doesn't come from them always having been a bad person. I think it comes from
Mhm.
an accumulation of experiences that have made them this way. And the same for
Mm.
the charismatic lady, an accumulation of how lived and experienced her life. Because, like you say, we can have a life that is filled with these things that we desire on an emotional stage. And one of the subconscious thoughts that I had about her, when I saw her, what I felt and thought was like, she has lived a happy life. She has enjoyed her life and her daily activities have been meaningful. Immediately from her whole vibe, I picked up and assumed about her. Like she has
Mhm.
been happy. She has had lots of great things happen to her. She has had meaningful relationships, a lot of exciting experiences, and it's all like radiating out from her. And I mean, that's who we want to be, a person who has had this life and where it shows, no matter how old we are and no matter which event we go to, people can feel this good from having interacted with us.
I think I want to challenge what you said a little bit, or just kind of explore. I think maybe less than challenge, but sort of explore that. But it's like you assume that she lived a happy life, right? Like you don't know anything about that person. And the crazy thing is, like, she could have, what hypothetically gone through abuse, could have gone through all these, like, maybe gone through so many terrible things, but then she's always choosing to look at life happy, like to look at it in a positive outcome. I've met a lot of people too who've gone through hardship, who've gone through poverty, or who've gone through abusive situations, but then they always have a smile on their face. Like they're always carrying themselves with joy. It doesn't mean that every single day is happy, but it's like I'm consciously making a choice to look into the positive and to be optimistic. And that is how people perceive that person. But you, at the end of the day, you never know what her life experiences has been. She's choosing to say that whatever happens to me doesn't define me, and I'm choosing to show up and smile. I'm choosing to show up and create this energy around me that's uplifting other people. So I think there's also this idea that we choose how we want to feel. Life is out of our control. Some things in our life can happen without our control, right? But we get to choose how we react in a situation. That's like the only thing that we have control of in our life is how are we thinking and how are we reacting to the external world. So even if someone is going through a hard time, they're making a choice to not let that define who they are and to operate on a certain level when they're going through their life because they're not letting any bad thing necessarily define them. They're just sort of like, this did happen to me, but this is not who I am, right?
Absolutely. It's an assumption. And whenever a person meets us and sees us at an event, we're a stranger to them. Everyone is going to
Mhm.
make assumptions about us.
Of course.
And I think it is only to our advantage if we intentionally try to make sure that these assumptions are to our favor, that people assume about us that we are a person who is happy, friendly, compassionate, and a person they would want to be close to
Mhm.
and get to know better. Because if we just put in a little effort, we have free will to make
Mhm.
choices. That is our greatest power as human beings. And especially choices when it comes to our perception about what is happening in our life and
Mhm.
whatever, way that a situation unfolds. We can be choosing to react to it in a way that is empowering to us or in a way that gives away our power. And the more we consciously and intentionally make sure to choose the reaction that empowers us, the more we're going to be able to be empowered because we're teaching ourselves, conditioning ourselves to be comfortable with choosing an empowered state of mind.
Mm. It's just like working out a muscle, right? And being positive. And I think when people see you like someone that's happy, or when they see someone that's taking a risk, like starting your own business is risky, right? It's exercise, doing these things in your life. It's kind of like exercising a muscle and staying positive and being self reflective. Like every person is negative, even like a monk has ego, right? Like every single human being experiences negativity, but it's that consciousness, right? That intentional decision that, like, hey, I'm aware that maybe I'm falling into a negative thought pattern in this instance. Let's observe that for a moment. But, like, is this really serving me? And what is staying in this negative thought pattern or in this dark space or depression going to do for me in this moment? And so I think as you become more aware that that is happening in your life, you're able to sort of exercise that muscle, right? And be like, wait, no, I'm going to choose to be positive, right? I'm going to say, like, okay, this happened. This sucks. This is bad, but I'm not going to let it change how I perceive the world, right? Like, I'm not going to let it change how I move through my life. You have to kind of keep exercising that muscle. And in the beginning, for anyone that's out there that's like maybe going through a little bit of depression or is maybe like stuff in your life is not working out, you have to just keep exercising that muscle. And over time, you will get better at rebounding from bad, like from things, negative things happening in your life. So the more you just choose to have a positive framework and sort of, you know, choose to like, okay, this is happening. Cool. Like, how do we address the solution? How do we move forward from it? And the more you do that, like you're going to find that it's easier and easier to move into a happier state of mind and into a more empowered state of mind and not let those things like bog you down. But it is work. Like everybody experiences negative emotions, you know? So it's just sort of going through that exercise with yourself and choosing the happier, the more positive path and really reinforcing kind of like a new neural pathway, a new way of thinking in your mind to make that selection. Because in the beginning, it's harder to make that choice, right? Because it's like kind of like that path doesn't exist for you. But the more you sort of exercise that muscle, the more that path is going to be available to you. And then the more you're going to find like things are just not gonna weigh you down anymore. You're like, you just kind of roll with the punches, and you're like, "This is life. This is what happens, and we're gonna move through it."
Yes. And the thing is not that we need to teach ourselves to overlook bad situations or
Mhm.
pretend like everything is good and positive, because toxic positivity is, well, toxic and
Yeah.
can be dangerous for us. We're not supposed to stay in a situation that is abusive or where we are close to burnout all the time or toxic in any way. That is not why we need to work on being able to make perception shift. No, it's really important to listen to our negative emotions because they carry important messages for us. If we feel bad about something, it's because something has triggered that bad feeling. And what we should rather focus on trying to understand is, well, what is the trigger of this? Is it
Mhm.
an old pattern, which I learned a while back, where a stimulus got this response? And without thinking, I have just, learned that I was conditioned that way. And now I'm still carrying that around. For example, somebody criticizes me and I get upset. Maybe sometime in your life that helped you because maybe a person was bullied or put down in situations and they needed to say no to when people were saying bad things about them and
Mhm.
automatically respond to any negative feedback with aggression or verbal aggression because that
Yeah.
was their survival mechanism. But as life went on, in a while, that's not going to be something that serves them because something that sounds harsh, it could actually be the most valuable feedback a person could ever get. And maybe a new
Mhm.
response that is better for this stimuli is something where you listen and evaluate before making assumptions. Like, for example,
Mhm.
in that situations, that could be more serving to that person. And we need to remember it's like Stephen Covey said in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which I love and recommend to everybody. He says that we have this gap between a stimulus and the response. We don't need to react that way. We're not dogs,
Mhm.
all right? We're humans.
Mhm.
And we can train ourselves to make the best possible use of this gap rather than just reacting instantly. We can teach ourselves to pause and choose what reaction we want for that
Mhm.
stimulus in that specific situation so that it serves us. And that I think is very important.
Yeah.
The more we can learn that, the more we will be able to master our emotional life and actually know how and when to listen to different emotions. When are they actually telling us to change something that is not sustainable? We need to get out from a certain job, a situation, a relationship, or whatever. We need to know that, okay, right now in this situation, this emotion is telling me a truth and I can't, you know, put it down. I can't hide it. I can't push it away. I need to listen to it and make sure that I change my external environment because it's trying to keep me alive and thriving. And other times it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm overreacting here. There is a better and much more resourceful way of reacting to this situation. And I need to make sure to change that so that I am in my best possible self all the time, or well,
Yeah.
trying to be all the time.
It's really just focusing on the inner monologue, being intentional, not punishing yourself for having negative thoughts or when you behave maybe out of term or not the way that you wanted to, and just being like, "Okay, that happened. How do we note let's note this so when it happens again, we can have control over the situation." And sometimes it takes time for all of these habits. They're essentially habits, right? To break them or make them or develop them. So it's really important about living your sort of just intentional life and being aware, being so aware of the life that you live and really being into your body and your existence.
Yes, absolutely.
S- So, Milena, what does living life like a game mean to you personally?
Well, it means that if we still think that there are like physical laws, they apply. Okay. So we can't jump out of buildings without a parachute and stuff like that. So obviously, I'm not talking about something crazy here. I'm talking about the mental game, the perception shift, about what we are comfortable with when we are exploring and expanding our comfort zone. Why are we only comfortable with that and not more? And what do we need to do to grow? Those kinds of things. Because there are a lot of things we could dress up as when it comes to our character. We don't have to be a
Mm-hmm.
certain way just because it's who we are used to being. We can go out into the world and be like, today I'm going to be a seductress, or today I'm going to be a trickster. Today I need to explore my healer side, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many archetypes, if you wish, that we can explore within ourselves and connect with and channel so that we learn to embody their best qualities in our
Mm-hmm.
different life situations so that they serve us in the highest possible way. We are not the same person, the same character all the time. And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't do anything about it, we're still going to change over time because life happens, we experience different things, and different events occur, and we're going to change. We're going to take on new characteristics, learn new behaviors. If we don't have any intention at all, that is still going to happen. But why just let it happen to us? Why, when we can,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, intentionally choose who we want to be based on where we're standing right now and our assumptions about what is going to serve us at the highest level? Why not go from there and see this ideal version of ourselves and try to be that person? That is also an option. And that is what this is to me. Like, this is a tool where you can actually connect with your ideal future version of yourself and embody that person more and more so that you reach that desired future. I really believe that that is a tool for creating the desired future. And I also see this future version of myself being like, you did good. Bravo. you know?
Yes.
And rather than having a future self that is bitter and angry at life and, disappointed in everything that happened to her. Well, that is what happens if you don't take charge of your life. And that is why I think it's so important to, well, not take it so seriously either. Because if we take it too seriously,
Yes.
it's like, well, how are you going to ever dare to step outside of your comfort zone? How are you going to dare to explore new sides of your character and your individuality?
Mm-hmm.
You, there's nothing to be afraid of. As long as you don't physically or like, well, in other ways, harm yourself or other people, then you're good to go. You have nothing to
Yeah.
lose.
I love that. It's really about kind of embracing a little bit of play and the spirit of fun. Like life is supposed to be fun. You're who you are is constantly changing. It's fluid, and explore yourself, explore your possibilities because you never know what's going to happen and always remember to play and kind of have fun, right? That's life is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy this. We have
Well
only one
said.
chance here, guys.
Well said.
Any cheat codes you would like to leave for the audience?
Sure. So I am sure that most of us have experienced a situation where we have been in a conversation with someone and a person says something and we don't know what to answer to that. We don't know a comeback line. We don't have anything that we instantaneously know that, okay, this is my answer to this. And we're feeling a little bit awkward, like, oh, I should have said something smarter or more intellectual, more worthwhile. And I just sounded stupid or I didn't find anything to say at all. And I think that is quite common and very frustrating when it does happen. And one thing that I have found that is very helpful is that, just like you said, don't judge yourself, don't be harsh on yourself if something like that does happen. Like, oh, I'm so stupid. I should have said this or that.
Mhm.
Rather, think about, like, well, what is this and this? What should you have said instead? If you could rewind the whole thing and try different responses in that situation, what would you have said? What would have been your response? And remember that for future occasions. And even better, not just like what would you have said, like your regular self, but what would your charming avatar have said? What would your provocative
Yes.
avatar have said? Your
Yes.
seductive avatar, your rich avatar, and so on. You have so many
Yes.
of them that you can explore. And this is totally safe and it can harm anyone because you're just playing mind games with yourself. But it will allow you to broaden your mind, to get new ideas for the vocabulary of really interesting responses that you can give in future situations. And it doesn't need to be that someone quotes the exact same situation. It will create more neural pathways, like you are also talking about, for
Mhm.
similar topics, similar situations, where you will be quicker on your feet next time. And the more of these imagined scenarios and prepared settings and answers that you can come up with, well, the better. You will have this whole treasure chest of gems that you can just pick out depending on what the situation will require of you.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're running mini simulations on your
Yes,
life, right? Like you're playing a game within a game within a game.
totally.
So I love it. You just gave us so much knowledge and wisdom today. It's kind of like really talking to your future self, understanding what that person would do and say and how that person would consult you. We talked about perception, which is so important, both the perception you have of yourself and how other people perceives you, and how having a really strong visualization and how you perceive yourself can kind of transform the visualization you have of yourself and of your life and help you get closer to that person, that avatar you're working on becoming. And then I love what you said right here at the end is experiment with your different characters, with your different attributes and see how what happens. And sometimes you'll be like, that didn't feel so good. I didn't like that. And sometimes you'll be like, oh yes, I want more of this. So keep exploring, keep having fun. Thank you so much, Milena, for joining me today. I'm really excited to share this episode. I think there's just so much wisdom
Thank
to
you
be
so
had on this
much.
call.
I've had so much fun on this conversation. And thank you again so much, Alex, for having me on your show. I have enjoyed myself so much, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the episode. And I'm really looking forward to when you come and write your guest blog post on my charisma blog.
Oh, and quickly, I forget. Can you please tell the audience how to keep in touch with you? Is there a website or what's coming up next?
Yes, totally. So I prefer to hang on LinkedIn when it comes to the different social media platforms. So on LinkedIn, I'm using my name, Milena Dalinaros, and the website is milenadalinaros.com. So please go ahead and visit that, read my blog, and I'm looking forward to your input. If you find charisma interesting, then please connect because I am in the middle of the process of writing my book. Your input is really valuable and welcome because this is a co-creation process. This is not just like the world according to Milena. I am very interested in hearing what are people actually wanting to read about charisma, and I'll make sure to give you that.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.